Kind of crazy how one tweet can cause this domino effect that leads to a discourse just freaking exploding. You may have heard about all the discussions happening surrounding Xbox and Xbox Game Pass as of late. Let me tell you how it all began and what's going on with that. So this is a tweet from Gene Park published on May 21st, 2022. It reads, "Yeah, I'm unsubscribing from Xbox Game Pass for the first time ever. Gotta admit to myself I barely use it and barely have use for it now. I'll be back, but for now, there is no point. Maybe the Xbox June showcase will change it, but I was promised new exclusives every 3 months, and we just don't have that." This was in part in response to Starfield and Redfall's delay, which made it so basically Xbox has no new first-party exclusives in 2022. Stuff was pushed to 2023, and that's where we're going to get a lot more consistent releases. And as I've said before, I for one support this move if it means the games will come out better, in a better shape. I'd rather them ship the game when it's ready than try to fulfill a quota, even if it kind of sucks that we're not getting any new first-party exclusives for Xbox in 2022. Now, Gene Park's stance here, I think it's perfectly reasonable. I unsubscribe and then resubscribe to subscription services all the time. You know, Final Fantasy XIV, for example, there was a period of time where I knew I wasn't going to be able to play the game. Doesn't mean I got turned off by it or anything. It was just like, I know that I'm going to take a break from it, so I decided to spend my money wisely, and that's what Gene Park is doing here. He's saying, I'm going to come back to this, but for now, there's just not enough here for me to partake in the service. And when it comes to Game Pass, for me, there are months where I'm like, okay, so this month I have all these games that are not on Game Pass that I purchased separately. I'm going to spend all my time on that, so, you know, I might unsubscribe this month and then come back the next when I'm ready to partake in Xbox Game Pass's library. It's just, you know, people making the decisions that they want to make based on how they want to, you know, make smart financial investments. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Other people have expressed the same. Tony Polanco here said on Sub from Game Pass, the service is great, but there aren't any AAA exclusives to compel me to stay. I'll be back when the titles start dropping. And, you know, it depends on what you're looking for with Game Pass. Some people are just looking for those first-party AAAs. Others are looking for third-party and first-party AAAs. Others are looking for indies and first-party and third-party AAAs. You name it. It's up to everyone to decide what they prioritize and what they're looking for to Game Pass and make a decision on when they want to subscribe or unsubscribe. Another gaming journalist, Take Him, retweeted Gene Park with, "Gene is right. Feel like a chump for prepaying all these years. At the end of 2022, I would have spent $240 for 4 years Game Pass Ultimate for just one great game that I played a decent amount, Horizon 5. Barely use it otherwise. Where are the exclusives? Bad investment for AAA-focused gamers." Yeah, people who focus on AAA games more do exist, and again, they have a right to make the decision that they want to make, unsubscribe, resubscribe whenever they feel is appropriate. So I personally don't think there's anything wrong with these stances. Now, in comes news outlet Kotaku with this article. This is a tweet that reads, "After years of hype, the Xbox Game Pass Burnout is here." Now, the framing here is essentially based off of these few journalists, more prominent names who said, I'm probably going to unsubscribe for now, maybe come back to it later. They're saying there's an Xbox Game Pass burnout that's happening across the board. That's where I think we are exaggerating a little bit. Just because a few more prominent names are unsubscribing doesn't mean that there's this mass exodus surrounding Xbox Game Pass. It doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of others who like both the first-party AAA games and the third-party AAA games and the indie games and all these things and are still happy with the service. And not to say that Xbox Game Pass won't experience a lull year in 2022 because of a lack of those first-party AAA releases that would greatly bolster those numbers, but the narrative of there's this mass burnout based off of a certain number of tweets from a certain number of more prominent names saying that they personally decided to unsubscribe, I think that's where people maybe took a little issue with this article. And so did Xbox Game Pass, as they clapped back pretty damn hard with this response to their article link and tweet, and they got ratioed pretty hard, Kotaku. Xbox Game Pass retorted with, "Tell me you limit yourself to only AAA games without telling me you limit yourself to only AAA games." And you can see right here, almost 60,000 upvotes in 24 hours. Now, there are those who clap back saying, well, I'm someone who tends to focus on AAA games. Is there something wrong with that? My stance is anyone can play whatever games they prefer to play, though I do think that if you only limit yourself to AAA games, you're really missing out on some incredible indie experiences. There's some really great stuff out there outside of the AAA realm, and I would certainly encourage people to, keep an open mind about that. And given what a crap fest the AAA landscape can be sometimes, the indie landscape is a nice bit of respite where games are made with integrity. More often than not, there's still some bad actors here and there, but generally these tend to be passion projects, and they tend to offer some of the most unique experiences. So I'd certainly encourage people to, expand their horizons if they are AAA exclusive gamers. But yeah, this is a clapback that I feel like is almost saying, look at all these games that are still there. You're acting like there's no games on Xbox Game Pass. There are plenty of AAA titles on Game Pass, a lot of third-party especially, but also first-party stuff, though no new first-party exclusive in 2022, which is fair criticism. Despite all of these games still being there, and numbers for Game Pass still overall likely being pretty strong, even if this is more of a lull year, you're saying that people are burning out, and, it just seems like a narrative that's being pushed just based off of a few tweets from a few more well-known names who, decided reasonably enough to say, hey, for now, I'm backing off of Game Pass. I'll come back later. And then coming in to beat the dead horse is In Exile Entertainment, who posted the following image where they featured what's called in mathematical terms the golden ratio, due to the fact that Xbox Game Pass, in terms of ratio, utterly bodied this Kotaku tweet. So let's take a look at the article itself. The headline of the Kotaku article reads, "After years of hype, the Xbox Game Pass Burnout is here. A drought of AAA games has spurred some to unsub for Microsoft's Games on Demand service." Keep in mind that this article doesn't present data about there being a mass exodus surrounding Game Pass or anything. They just featured a handful of tweets. Now, the article already opens in bad faith. When Game Pass starts trending, it's either because it scored a killer game or some influencers concocted a viral joke that ultimately does nothing than hand a $2 trillion corporation 2 days of free marketing. Referring to a joke that Destin from IGN kickstarted with the following tweet, "Twitter is convinced that so many of us are just paid to advertise Xbox Game Pass. That's crazy. Almost as crazy as having access to hundreds of games and day one releases for $10 a month. And if you're new, you can even get 3 months right now for only $1. Basically poking at the fact that there is a minority, a loud vocal minority, who decide to assume that anyone who's complimenting Game Pass is probably being paid. And that's something that I get occasionally from time to time too. And it's kind of frustrating because I'm talking about Game Pass positively because I genuinely think it's a great service to be an alternative to traditional game purchases. It's not replacing what we already have, the stuff that people love to do, which is, buy games physically or digitally. But for those who can't afford $60 for every new game release and whatnot, having this huge library of games for a pretty reasonable monthly fee, I think it's fantastic. And so eventually a number of content creators also got in on it because they get this crap all the time. Skill Up tweeted, "Very surprised to learn that some people think media and YouTubers are paid to promote Game Pass. LOL, that's almost as ridiculous as Game Pass giving you access to hundreds of games on day one releases for only, $10 a month, etc., etc." I kind of retweeted and joked about that too, so on and so forth. And eventually Phil Spencer got in on it. We all appreciate the love the community is showing for Xbox Game Pass right now. Motivates us to keep improving the service. Just express genuine gratitude for the kind of feedback that they've been getting. A lot of positivity, and Xbox Game Pass kind of got in on it too. The internet thinks we paid people to talk about Xbox Game Pass this weekend, and that's just absurd, almost as absurd as yada yada yada, all these benefits you get from Xbox Game Pass. That's basically what Kotaku's article begins by dissing, even though, I'm in full support of talking positively when a company does something good. And in the case of Game Pass, I think it's just a really great service to have as an alternative, so I'll speak positively about it because it is worth promoting, in my opinion. When something is worth promoting, I'll share positive sentiments because I genuinely enjoy the thing, whereas if a company does something awful, I'll talk negatively about it and try to dissuade from that thing being normalized. That's just how I do coverage. And it's just ironic, this first paragraph coming from a website that covers video games and is actively promoting a number of major corporations. So the hypocrisy here is just palpable and hilarious. But moving past that, Microsoft's Games on Demand program started trending for another reason. Players say they're unsubscribing for now. Again, Kotaku's framing it as if this is a widespread thing when it's just a handful of journalists who tweeted I'm out for now. The burnout largely comes down to subscribers saying that Game Pass isn't delivering on its value proposition. For a monthly fee, Game Pass grants you access to a Netflix-style library of games that you can download to your Xbox or PC, or in some cases stream to a compatible device. But the big selling point is this: every first-party Microsoft game hits the library at launch, meaning subscribers get access at no extra cost to Microsoft's prestigious first-party releases. Earlier this month, Bethesda, officially now one of Xbox's first-party studios, delayed its two biggest forthcoming games, space RPG Starfield and vampire shooter Redfall, developed by Bethesda subsidiary Arcane. Both were expected to launch day one on Game Pass this year. Now they won't come out until the first half of 2023, leaving Microsoft's first-party portfolio looking much drier than it did a month ago, certainly for 2022. And yes, for those who strictly subscribe to Game Pass for those first-party AAA exclusives, sure, there might be some burnout there and they might unsubscribe for now, but plenty of people subscribe to Game Pass not just for the first-party exclusives. They're a big selling point of the service, but there are so many other games to partake in as well, so many games to discover. I discovered so many games through Game Pass that I wouldn't have purchased separately, that I discovered because I was looking through this list that I could just access anytime, and I went, I guess I'll try this out because I can. I don't have to just pay individually for each one of these games just to see if it's to my taste. And so this sampler essentially allows me to try games out, and then if they hook me, I can play them all the way through. And that's one of the magical things about Game Pass. It's this openness that brings people to keep a more open mind about trying out new games. Kotaku then proceeds by highlighting the handful of tweets that criticize the lack of first-party exclusive releases, which again is fair criticism given that Microsoft had said in the past that they plan to release a number of these games every year. So far, they've failed to meet that quota. They probably shouldn't have set those expectations if they couldn't deliver on it. But at the same time, would you rather, them meet the quota but get less polished versions of those games, or would you rather have those delays so that these games can launch in the best way possible? I personally choose the latter. Now, Kotaku does say it's unclear whether the extended combos had a tangible impact on Game Pass subscription numbers, but that's all the more reason to not justify this headline and article, "The Game Pass Burnout is Here," when we don't really know what the impact of the delays has been for Game Pass numbers, when we don't have figures surrounding what Game Pass's performance has been like. Kotaku then claims that a dip in interest to a certain extent was inevitable, and then they list a number of great Game Pass games that did come out prior to this kind of lull period. Mix of big and small games, old and new, caused Game Pass subscriptions to ramp up significantly in 2020. There's no way Microsoft could have maintained that cadence forever. Nearly 6 months into 2022, though it's added the occasional gem, Game Pass has yet to feature an "oh my god, take my money" lineup of forthcoming games. For now, again, 2022 is a lull year, but Starfield is still coming out on Game Pass on day one, as is Redfall, as is Avowed, as is Perfect Dark, and all of these really compelling sounding games that are being developed with all of these Microsoft acquisitions. So there's still a compelling value proposition for down the line. And while we wait for those Xbox first-party exclusive releases to kick into full gear, there's still plenty on offer that may not appeal to everyone, again, particularly those who only subscribe to Game Pass for day one access to those first-party exclusive AAA games. But for everyone else, there's still more games here than you can play in a reasonable amount of time. There's more content to consume than I'm able to find the time for. And so I think Xbox Game Pass's clapback was frustration at the notion that people only subscribe to Xbox Game Pass for those big AAA games or those big AAA exclusive releases, which again is a part of the service and a major selling point. But there is so much more on offer, and so that's why they're like, tell me you limit yourself to only AAA games without telling me you limit yourself to only AAA games. That's just the general vibe that I'm getting. But at the same time, it is fair to call out Xbox for saying that they want to release 3 to 4 to 5 AAA games every year to give Game Pass an even better value proposition, only to not deliver on that. Journalist Take Him tweeted this when Starfield and Redfall were delayed. Wait a second, does Xbox have anything on the AAA console exclusive shelf for 2022 now. No AAA exclusive games at launch, no AAA exclusive games in year 2, huh? And others were quick to note some rather ironic facts, like the fact that PlayStation Studios has released more games on Xbox than Xbox Game Studios this year, which is technically true. And then Jeff Grubb retweeted this and added on top of that, and Xbox has released nearly as many PlayStation exclusives as Xbox exclusives in the last 9 months. And so Take Him clapped back at Xbox Game Pass by tweeting, "Tell me you lack first-party AAA exclusives without telling me you lack first-party AAA exclusives," which is true for now. And again, it is worth mentioning given that, indeed, Phil Spencer mentioned back in March 2020, our goal is to be able to bring 4 or 5 new big games to the platform every year. And sure, he did use the word goal. It wasn't like a promise or a guarantee, but they missed the goal by so much in 2022 that the frustration surrounding the lack of releases in 2022 is understandable, but I, for one, because of how many times I've been burned by rushed AAA releases, would rather be patient. And in response to his own tweet, Take Him highlighted this article from GamesIndustry.biz, whose headline reads, "Xbox wants to release a game every 3 months." So 4 AAA first-party exclusives every year. We're nowhere close to that yet. I think 2023 is going to be that year. I mean, we're going to get 2 of them in the first half of 2023, Starfield and Redfall. These are huge games, and then who knows what we'll get in the second half. So yeah, this is where the discourse is at right now. To fully summarize my opinions on everything, I think it's perfectly valid for folks to decide to express that for now they're unsubscribing because they feel like, based on what they value about Game Pass, they currently don't find the value for now, and that they'll come back later when that value is there. I don't think that necessarily means there's this widespread burnout surrounding Xbox Game Pass, as Kotaku claims here, because there's still so much content on Xbox Game Pass that you can still find plenty of value in it. I certainly still do when I do have time to access those games and play that huge library of games. It allows me, again, to just continuously discover new games. That's what Game Pass has paved the road for. And so there's a part of me that's like, I get why Game Pass clapped back at this specific article and the way they framed this whole situation and this whole discourse. But at the same time, I think criticism against Xbox for being nowhere near their goal of trying to release 3 to 4 to 5 first-party AAA games every year is totally fair. That's definitely something that should be called out. Though at the same time, I, for one, am in the territory of I'm not that mad about it because I am more frustrated by rushed, broken, unpolished game releases than I am about delays. And unlike the Xbox One era, where it really felt hopeless as far as game releases go with Xbox Series S and X, with this generation, it feels like Xbox is, they're still kind of getting their stuff together because they acquired so many studios and they really have to start coordinating everything. But I do feel like once things kick into full gear, especially in 2023, we are going to start seeing a lot more compelling releases at a much more consistent schedule. And, that's what I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. And I'm confident that that will happen. This generation of Xbox is just looking a lot more hopeful than Xbox One did, when you look at the breadth of content that is in store for the future, and certainly for the long-term future. It's just getting longer to get there than some people expected. You don't want to throw away money at subscription services that you won't use during a certain time period. Again, I've unsubscribed and resubscribed to things that I enjoy, that I'm like, all right, I'm taking a break for now. I'll come back to it later. That doesn't mean it's a burnout. I'm not burned out by Final Fantasy XIV when I unsubscribe to it for a bit, or by Game Pass when I unsubscribe to it for a bit. I'm just trying to spend my money smartly based on what my time allows when it comes to these subscription services and whether the content is there for me to engage with the services during a certain time period. A burnout would be, Google Stadia. That's what I call a burnout. Game Pass is like nowhere near in that territory, if you ask me. So yeah, that's kind of my general take on the discourse going on, multiple sides to all of this, and it's been interesting to see how one tweet caused this blazing fire of discourse and discussion. But that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the current state of Xbox Game Pass. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.